Hey brother! Jay, I can't help but notice that at the end of Infinity War, all 6 of the original Avengers are still left standing. Like, oh my god, what are the odds? It's almost like they added a whole bunch of other characters so they could all die and we could sneak the original 6 straight through to the finish line. Just thinking out loud. But that got me thinking. There are 6 original Avengers. You have Cap, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Hulk, and Thor. And we have 6 Infinity Stones. Power, space, mind, time, reality, and soul. What if each of the original 6 Avengers represents an Infinity Stone, and the real key to defeating Thanos is bringing them all together for one last fight? Guys, in case you were unaware, the SuperCarlinBrothers has a Patreon page where there are all sorts of ridiculously cool perks that give you lots more access to us. My favorite reward level in particular is the $3 level, which grants you access to our Discord server, which is basically where the SuperCarlinBrothers community lives. It is always happening, lots of fun, and comes with a free nickname. But seriously, if there was ever a movie with more pressure on it than Avengers Endgame, I don't know what it is. Maybe Phantom Menace? Just please be better than Phantom Menace. I don't feel like that's asking for a lot.
Now this is pod racing.
Also, please be the best movie I've ever seen, get amazing critical reviews, win an Academy Award, and go down in history as the greatest movie ever created. Not that much to ask. As you can probably tell, anticipation here at SCBHQ has been pretty high, and we've been doing all sorts of speculating about what the plot may ultimately be about. And as I said, the whole Avengers initiative kind of started with 6 people, and there are 6 Infinity Stones, and it seems a little bit too much of a coincidence to not matter. So what is the real takeaway here? Well, some people have speculated that in order to defeat Thanos, what the Avengers are going to have to do is travel back in time in order to collect their own Infinity Stones, create their own gauntlet, and then go fist to fist with them. Which, I agree, an Infinity Gauntlet boxing match kinda sounds awesome. But time travel is not always the most fun plot device, and I have a feeling introducing even more all-powerful objects into this universe could be a dangerous precedent. So I don't know if I don't think it's impossible, but I don't feel it. More likely in my mind is that these 6 Avengers in particular are important because they each represent so purely each of the Infinity Stones. So rather than needing their own Infinity Mitten, they just need to come together as a team, because as a team, they're more powerful than the Gauntlet. Which, to me, isn't terribly hard to believe. We've seen one semi-organized group almost take him down, and they had only known each other for like 2 hours. I mean, to be fair, in that battle, Thanos was still missing 2 of the Infinity Stones, but also to be fair, right now, Thanos isn't exactly in attack mode or even defense mode. He's just busy watching sunrises. Ooh, menacing. Only problem is we don't exactly know where he is. Though, based on our first look at Thanos in the Endgame trailer, it seems possible that our huge final battle could take place in a meadow. So let's hope none of the Avengers have a bad pollen allergy, because it will be flying! But in all seriousness, Thanos never takes on all 6 at once, and the ones that he has faced off with from those original 6 give him some of his most trouble. Tony is able to draw blood in possibly one of my favorite superhero fights of all time. Thor puts a giant hole in his chest cavity with an axe, and Cap is able to slow him down even if it's just for a second. Sure, he casually tossed Bruce aside, but he wasn't even in Hulk mode, and when he was able to land a few hits even though he ultimately lost. But who even knows if that was actually Hulk anyway? Full video by clicking the card. Which just leaves Clint, who wasn't there, and Natasha, who just kind of fell over, but we'll get back to her. Personally, I love this idea because it means we get to take each of the original 6 Avengers and kind of sort them, if you will, into which Infinity Stone that they represent. That said, let's get started with possibly the most obvious of them all, the Power Stone, which clearly goes to the Hulk. I mean, what else is there even to say? He's clearly the most powerful Avenger.
Welcome, strongest Avenger.
What? Maybe you could argue time because he's green, and because he had like 2 years where he was lost in time on Sakaar.
Time works real different around these parts.
But time honestly feels kind of like a reach. You could also go for mind because Bruce Banner himself is just so smart.
Call every lab you know. Tell them to put the spectrometers on the roof and calibrate them for gamma rays. I'll rough out a tracking algorithm, basic cluster recognition.
But let's face it, Infinity War made it absolutely crystal clear that it's the Hulk who's the hero, and not Bruce Banner. Okay. And like I said, power fits way better than time. Hulk is power, moving on. I think without a doubt, the next most obvious is Thor representing the Space Stone. I mean, for one, he's the only one from space. Although if you really think about it, we're all from space. But if you don't really think about it, then it helps. But more importantly, thanks to Stormbreaker, he currently holds the power of the Bifrost, which is the ability to travel through space at will, which is kind of the same power as the Space Stone. Though it's not like there aren't other options for Thor as well. Obviously, he's pretty powerful, as long as nobody tases him in the neck with electricity, which makes no sense. He's the god of thunder. He creates his own. Either way, as far as power is concerned, he basically beats the Hulk in hand-to-hand combat. And he does live for an incredibly long time, and he has an entire movie revolving around the Reality Stone. It was kind of an indie film. It was called Thor: Dark World. You probably haven't seen it. But he is the king of Asgard, the ruler of the 9 realms, which covers quite a bit of space. Or is it just 4.5 realms now? How does that work? Either way, 9 or 4.5, it means moving all over space. Thor is the Space Stone, moving on. Next up is the Mind Stone, which I think easily goes to Tony. I mean, Franklin, if you aren't gonna give it to Bruce, there really almost isn't any other option. Tony is pretty much hands down the smartest guy on the team and possibly even one of the smartest people on the planet, except for maybe Shuri.
Why didn't you just reprogram the synapses to work collectively?
Because we didn't think of it?
I'm sure you did your best.
I mean, seriously though, intelligence basically is his superpower. I mean, his suit is incredibly powerful, but it doesn't happen without his brain. I mean, remember that time he built an arc reactor out of scraps in a cave? Obadiah certainly does.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Forever one of my favorite quotes in the entire MCU. Or that time he invented a new element, or built a robot out of his own personal AI, vibranium, an alien crystal, and alien thunder? Oh, and by the way, which alien crystal was that? Oh yeah, the Mind Stone. Yep, sorry, I don't see any argument against it. Tony, Mind Stone, moving on. Now, to be fair, the first 3 were the easy ones. The next 3 get a little bit trickier. We still have to pair Steve, Natasha, and Clint with soul, reality, and time. Now, this one might seem kind of unexpected, but I'm pairing Cap with the Time Stone. Stay with me. If you think about it, he's literally a man lost in time, and so much of his character arc revolves around the fact that he is somewhere where he's kind of not supposed to be. And what really drives this home for me is this small little clip from the Endgame trailer, which just shows him looking at a picture of Peggy, which heavily alludes to the idea that somehow, some way, he's getting back to her. Especially when you combine that with that weird cryptic vision we saw in Age of Ultron. Somehow, some way, Steve's getting back to Peggy. And yes, I know that there are other stones you could easily pair with Steve as well, like super strength is his superpower, so that's a pretty obvious nod towards the Power Stone. And yes, his whole first movie is about the Space Stone. Not to mention, you could also pretty easily convince me that he's the heart and soul of the team, and who else is Soul gonna go to? Well, I'll tell you who, Natasha. She is the real heart and soul of the team. And yeah, I hear you saying, what? The heartless Russian assassin? That's who represents the heart and soul of our team? You're darn tootin'. Hear me out. The one thing that Natasha never had as a kid was a loving connection of any kind. We see in her flashback that she was trained at a very young age to feel nothing. Shoot first, ask questions later. But since then, we've seen her pretty much do nothing but fight this mentality and form deep connections with pretty much everyone else on the team. She's the one who recruits Banner to join the original team. She's the only one who can calm him down, and she kind of becomes a love connection with him later. She has an entire movie with Tony. She has an entire movie with Cap in Winter Soldier, where she, helps him take down Hydra. Also, she's continuously suggesting that he ask the girl across the hall out, just sort of suggesting this idea that she wants him to have a life outside of the soldier life. Clint being compromised is the very reason she joins the Avengers to begin with. His kids call her Auntie Nat, and they're just obviously longtime close friends.
Just like Budapest all over again.
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
As for Thor, well, to be honest, I'm not sure she actually knows him all that well, but he is off in space, so there's that. Although she is the only one respectful enough to not try to pick up his hammer.
Oh, no, that's not a question I need answered.
And if that doesn't say best friends forever, I don't know what does. The point is, Natasha has a closer relationship with everyone else on the team than any of them have with anyone else. She is striving the hardest for the one thing she was never allowed: a soul. Which just leaves us with Clint in the Reality Stone. A perfect fit. End of video. Just kidding. I was actually pretty happy about how this all shook down though. I was able to sort everyone else pretty well, but Clint was kind of tricky, but it actually totally makes sense. Clint is the only one of the Avengers who has a reality outside of work. We've seen Tony try and fail and try and fail, and whenever he actually puts his personal life first, a magician shows up and he ends up in space a few minutes later. Steve nearly had it with Peggy, but then he got trapped in time. Natasha loved Banner, but he ended up in space. Bruce has literally gone to the far reaches of the world to isolate himself from anyone he could potentially hurt, and then also lived on a trash planet for 2 years as a huge green gladiator, so there was that. And Thor, poor Thor.
And you said your sister and your dad.
Both dead.
But still got a mom, though?
Killed by a dark elf.
A best friend?
Stabbed through the heart.
Clint values reality, and he even takes notice of it.
Okay, look, the city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
And there you go, guys. Each of the original 6 Avengers paired with their respective Infinity Stone. Personally, I think that is how they beat Thanos. Or they'll just time travel and they'll each hunt down their respective stone. But hopefully not, maybe, but who knows, whatever. As long as you're the best movie that's ever been created, Avengers, I'm fine with it. Do your thing. Guys, for my question of the day, which Infinity Stone best represents you, and how would you pair up each of the Avengers with the stones? Leave all your thoughts in the towel section down below. Guys, did you know that we have our very own Hey Brother sunglasses? I'm not gonna say that wearing them makes you look like a superhero, but I'm not gonna say it doesn't. Check them out over at SuperCarlinBrothers.store. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see some more Marvel action from us, you can click right here to see what Doctor Strange's true plan is, or right here to figure out whether or not Thanos killed himself with the snap. But Jay, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you on Tuesday.